Salutations out there, friends. A hearty hello to all of you. For those of you that don't know, this is Dragon with DragonRocRPG. One of the people I definitely look up to when it comes to homebrew, creature design, item design, class design, subclass design, background design out the wazoo. Super awesome,
you try and do a
wholesome
little
guy,
bit of everything,
and you do it so well. So before we get started, do you want to kind of talk about Dragon Rock and what you guys do and who you guys
Dragon
are?
Rock shtick.
Please
Yeah.
do.
As Garrett said, most people just know me as Dragon, but my name is Daniel Lieberman, though it's true. Even my wife mostly calls me Dragon. I am one half of Dragon Rock RPG Design, where alongside my writing and design partner, Renee Beauregard, I create supplemental material to be used in games of D&D 5e. This includes, as Garrett said, subclasses, races, monsters, magic items, backgrounds. Today we're going to be working on monster stat blocks. Pretty much anything else you might want or could think of for a game of D&D. You can follow us at Dragon Rock RPG Design on Instagram and at Dragon Rock RPG on Twitter and Facebook. That is rock spelled R-O-C, like the giant mythical bird, not like the shard of stone, so there is no K. You can follow us there to keep up on everything Renee and I are doing in the world of TTRPGs. Some of our supplements that we have available on DM's Guild, we've done several supplements focused on subclasses. Our most recent was our Ranger subclasses, Volume 1, that had 3 new Ranger archetypes. Before that, we had our Warlock subclasses, Volume 1, and then our Barbarian subclasses, Volume 1. Prior to that, our first release on DM's Guild was the Icons of Horror, which was 5 different subclasses, all inspired by villains from horror cinema. All of those supplements are available as free, pay what you want documents, so download them, check them out, see if you like it. If you enjoy them and you want to throw us a few bucks, we do appreciate it. More than anything, we like to hear from people. So if you can give us a rating and review, that's great, because we want to keep making things that people enjoy. So if you let us know what you like, we'll keep doing more of that. And we're still learning, so if you give us a few things of feedback, maybe it'll change how we approach some things and refine our own skills. In addition to our own designs, we love working with other members of the community, like I have the pleasure of doing with Garrett here today, where we work as consultants and collaborators, trying to help other people realize their material in the best way possible, learn from our experiences creating material for D&D 5e and TTRPGs in general. We also do material via commission. So if you don't want to make stuff yourself, but you have a cool idea and you want somebody to make it for you, reach out to us. We are available. Other than that, I guess I can say where you can find us on streams, where Renee and I are both occasionally doing stuff with the Initiative Order, which is a great community. Renee runs his Mythical Melees there, which happen every couple of months and are kind of fun. I help out on the back end. We occasionally pop up in games there. Renee is currently over on the Red Hair Inn, a channel run by our friend Logan, a friend of both Garrett's and ours. And Logan's going to be coming on Story Ellis soon, is he not?
Yes, he is. That's a week. In a week. He will be on in 7 days when we kick off Story Ellis.
Exactly. So every week it's going to alternate. Logan will be here playing Story Ellis with Garrett. And the other weeks are the Ecrium Adventures, which Logan runs in his world of Ecrium and Renee plays in. And then I'm over on the Red Hair Inn generally on like Thursdays, every couple of weeks, helping Logan do some homebrew stuff. So you can catch me there too, and we pop up in all the different spaces. Follow the socials, you can find us there.
And in chat, I did link your DM's Guild page. If you just click that link, it takes you to all their stuff. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. So give them a look there. Give them those rates. Pay what you want.
So appreciated, Garrett.
Oh no, I appreciate you. By the way, we do have a raffle going. The Eldritch Press is one of our proud sponsors. If you do !raffle in chat, you are entered to win an adventure from the Eldritch Press, who is about to launch their Kickstarter, and there will be more information on that later to come. So, without any further ado, Mr. Dragon, are you ready to get started? You ready to do this thing?
Yeah, well, we're going to go back and design your version of the Mesopotamian demon king of the wind demons, Pazuzu.
Absolutely. The Demon Wind King himself. Let's do this thing. Let's roll. So when we last left off, we had the stats are in there, the modifiers are in there. We gave... did we do proficiencies? It doesn't look like we did. Yeah, we did. We did some.
We've done some of the skilled proficiencies. We kind of skipped over that to get to some of the other things. So one of the good places for us to start would be saving throws and skill proficiencies, because after that, the things we're going to be looking at are their actions, including their attacks, their spell casting, because we know there's going to be some innate spell casting here. But if you want to dive in with proficiencies, that is totally a good place to start. And if anyone who's watching didn't catch the first one, Garrett, I'm assuming you've got that in your VODs somewhere.
That is, and I think I uploaded it to YouTube as well, so you can check it out on YouTube also.
So yeah, you can get the part one where we sort of discuss a basic approach to how to adapt Pazuzu to D&D 5e, how it differs from demons that we typically see there, and how, I was telling Garrett, this has to be Garrett's version of Pazuzu, because the mythology is itself conflicting, and there is more than one version, and there's more than one adaptation. The Exorcist, for example, which as far as we can tell has very little or nothing to do with the original Mesopotamian roots. But how Garrett envisions Pazuzu existing in the Mesopotamian-inspired world that you plan to build with Gilgamesh.
Absolutely.
And so we dived into that a little more.
Yeah. So, and kind of what we talked about last time, the way that the Gilgamesh, as of right now, as it stands now, Gilgamesh is more of like a setting guide than it is the Gilgamesh adventure will be in there. But Pazuzu doesn't make an appearance in the epic itself, but he is in, the Mesopotamian mythology. So to include him in the setting guide,
a figure in that world.
Exactly, it would make sense if you want to run your own Mesopotamian-inspired adventures. You're going to need a Pazuzu, I guarantee it, even if you're not running Gilgamesh itself and you're kind of homebrewing something based on the guide. So, that's why we're doing this, and that's why you're here, and that's why everybody else watching at home is also here, and thanks for tuning in, by the way. I appreciate that. You didn't have to be here, but you are here anyway, and I thank you for that. So, yeah, let's do some skill proficiencies.
Yeah, so one thing I'm going to say you can look at is, again, we were basing this, we know it's a challenge rating 20 to 24. We know this is a Demon King, so power level, we were trying to put this similar to something like the Demon Lords, right?
Absolutely.
One of the ones we were looking at was Gratz, or Grazit, depending on how you pronounce it, which if we pull out Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, we're looking at page 149.
Mm-hmm.
But Gratz is just one example. The Demon Lords around it. What this gives us an example of about how many proficiencies you're going with here. This is not a hard and fast rule. As you can see, Gratz has 3 proficiencies in terms of saving throws. Praz Ublu, the one before that, has 4 proficiencies in terms of saving throws, and is a lower challenge rating. So it's not a hard and fast rule, right? Most of the time, they're not going to be proficient in all 6, right?
Right.
I would say a creature of this power, minimum you want them to have the equivalent of what a normal adventurer would have, which is 2.
Mm-hmm.
It would make sense to go to the 3 or 4 because they are an extremely powerful creature. 5 or 6, I don't think is necessary here.
No.
Very few things unless you are a monk of above 14th level, that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, this guy's not a monk, so that's not going to be a thing.
Yeah, but so we had already eliminated strength because we figured strength really wasn't something that was the leading force for them.
He is not muscle sminky.
No, he's stronger than a human could ever be. Excuse the sirens going by me. He's stronger than a human could naturally be, but that's it. It's not how he does his things. He's more dex-based. We have still given him a dex proficiency, though, because, well, we want him to be the most dexterous of dexterous things, because king of the wind demons, right? Tied to mythology about the four winds. Speed and dexterity are kind of his thing.
Right.
What else are we looking at in saving throws? What calls to you?
So this
I
is where
would
it gets
say-
picky and really hard, because I can see all of them, but clearly we can't for power level reasons. But I would say...
Well, I mean, you can, but what are the ones that are most important? I'm going to say you need to cut at least one of the 4 other than dex that we have, if not 2. But
I would say Constitution could probably be the one that would be cut.
so that is possible. I will say the one argument for keeping Constitution, when you think about spells that we're going to give them, because there's going to be a few different spells, right?
Mhm.
They're not... We're probably going to give them a bunch of concentration spells. Are we not?
Yeah.
Because
Okay,
Gust
that would
of
make
Wind
sense.
is a concentration spell.
Right.
And also, when we might give them certain leveled spells at will, but if they're all concentration, they can still only do one of them at once. We might want them to be pretty good at maintaining concentration,
Mhm.
right? So Constitution would be good. Also, they are real tough to beat down, right?
Yeah.
Their Constitution is more than just physical. So I might keep Con for that reason. I would say you don't want to have 3 mental stat saves, because what you've set up with them currently is they are intelligence, wisdom, charisma, scale in that order. Intelligence is high by human terms, but it's not for a god or demigod or whatever Pazuzu is.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, of the mental saves, charisma is your force of personality. In terms of what the saves against it are, that's generally for things like resisting being banished or plane shift. That's what charisma is good for. Now, they have a pretty high charisma naturally, so they don't necessarily need the save. Wisdom is one of the big 3 saving throws. The 3 that are most common are dexterity, because fireball and breath weapons, and constitution, partly because of concentration, but also because of things that physically wither you, and wisdom, because wisdom is what you use against almost all charm spells or things that would like hold person. It's your force of will to resist, that kind of thing. So of those 3, and intelligence is actually a very rare saving throw. It's generally against psychic things.
Mm-hmm.
Mind flayers and things like that trigger off intelligence saving throws.
Okay.
No, I throw a lot at you.
We can probably throw away intelligence as a saving throw.
Okay. I'm
thinking.
fine with that. I'm thinking of the mental saves. That's probably the one that applies the least.
Yeah.
Like, if outsmarting Pazuzu is probably possible. Outforce of willing him
Yeah, that's not
might
going
be
to
more challenging.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think that makes sense. Now, we may cut one more if there's any of these that you don't think we need. As you said, con could be cut if we're going to cut another physical save. It's up to you which of the other 2 you'd want to cut if you do. Like, if you want Pazuzu, hey, he's got a +8 to his charisma already. He can... A powerful spellcaster could potentially banish him, right? Like, he might be easier to banish than kill.
That could be. Yeah. Okay,
So,
I hadn't really thought about
charisma
that.
could
Yeah,
go
you're
for
right.
that reason. But I am happy to leave those 4 for now.
Okay.
And know that we might cut one more. Right?
Okay. That would
Because
work.
again, we're building a over challenge rating 20 creature here.
Yeah.
It's a little different if we were trying to make a lower level thing, and I'm like, no, they can't be proficient in everything. At this level, potentially.
There we go. Okay, so there are the saving throws.
Skills.
So let me ask you this question, just because I don't know from a design perspective. Why do monsters have proficiency in saving throws?
Because players can cast spells at them, right?
Oh, duh, that makes sense. Okay.
And some non-play. Like, here's the thing: most lower level monsters or NPC stat blocks don't have a lot of saving throw proficiencies, and many of them have none. Right.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Because why would they? Like, if you look at low challenge rating creatures, a lot of them don't have saving throws. Why would the average goblin have a proficiency? They're kind of dexterous, but they just have that, right? Mm-hmm. It's a way to make more powerful entities. Like, hey, this means Pazuzu is unlikely to fail a saving throw against fire. He is super fast and flying, right? He's likely going to be able to get out of the way of a dex save of a... I think we talked about this last time. A level 20 spellcaster with their casting stat at 20 and no magic items or anything else making it higher.
Yeah.
Their spell save is 19, which means Pazuzu needs to roll a 4 or higher to make that save and only take half damage.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, so it's... That's right. Okay, now you're ringing some bells.
Yeah, and now it's also useful for things, I mean, self-serving as this is, dragons are a good example. For the most part, though it's changed a little bit with the dragons who came in Fizbins, dragons are not in D&D statted out as being terribly dexterous because they're large.
Right.
They're strong, they're tough. Their dex is most of the time like a 10. Some of them have a 14. There's some newer ones that it's slightly higher than that. But they are all proficient in dex saving throws because they're good at dodging out of the way of things. So even though they don't have a dex mod, they're still good at getting out of the way of a fireball because they're really good at banking and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So you can use saving throws to either make existing oh, well, that's nice.
Thanks for the
I
gift
just got
of the
gifted a sub.
Wow, what a treat. Hey, thank you.
Ruin Its Paths D&D. I am happy to have a gifted sub to 225 Games.
Here, have some deuces
much.
and cincos thrown at your face as a reward. Huzzah. Yeah, thank you for that. That's awesome. I appreciate you. You're good people. You can stay. We'll keep you around.
All are welcome. So that is why you can use saving throws either to make something even better at what they're already good at, like we have done with Pazuzu with, for example, both their dex and their charisma, or you can use it to, like the example I used for dragons of they're not that dexterous most of the time, but they're probably good at dex saving throws, right?
Right.
It's just a way to make them a little more survivable. A relatively low willpower creature is not going to have wisdom saves, so it's easy for them to be charmed or held in place with magic and things like that.
Okay.
The extension I will say and then we'll center back to this because I know you're trying to learn homebrew more broadly. You will notice that every player class at level 1 gets proficiency in 2 saving throws, right? All of them have one from a list of common saving throws, which I told you about, which are Con, Dex, and Wisdom. Those are the 3 most common saving throws. And they all have one from the less common list, aka Strength, Charisma, and Intelligence. And the reason for that is, if you gave somebody Dex and Wisdom, or Dex and Con, that makes them, out of the gate, be able to resist more things. Whereas if everybody has one kind of common one and one less common one, it makes it sort of a counterbalance for all the classes having a good same starting place. It's one of the biggest quote unquote mistakes people make when they homebrew their own classes, which is a big challenge, is that they give them like, oh, well, I want to have X and con. Okay, that you've just given your kit class a power jump. Now, I'm not saying that is impossible to do. If you rein things in other ways, maybe it's okay. But you're already setting yourself up to be viewed as overpowered.
Yeah.
Right? So that's my other aside on saving throws for class design specifically.
Cool.
And that's also something you just learn over time, because it doesn't anywhere in any of the books say these are common saving throws and these are uncommon ones. Right. That's just something you figure out.
Got it. So it's just something you learn from experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, as we move on to skills, here's the thing. For the most part, skills are not going to matter in terms of a balance sense. Because, yes, athletics factors into things for grapples, as does acrobatics, potentially. The ones that really do factor in more commonly are stealth and perception. Stealth, if this thing is trying to sneak up on you, right? Perception, if you're trying to sneak up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the other skills are not really going to, they will factor into roleplay elements.
Yeah.
So if something is, but the balance of combat, whether it's proficient in survival or not, is not going to freaking matter.
Right.
Right? Or proficiency in performance. But what it does do is it adds flavor.
Yeah.
It adds some roleplay potential.
Okay. So whenever you're doing skills, because there's not really a huge power element in this, theoretically, could one be proficient in every single skill and it still be considered balanced?
Theoretically, yes. Does it make sense for them to be proficient in every single skill, though? Like, what's the narrative of that? Why would Pazuzu? I know they wouldn't, right?
Right, no, I don't think anybody would, but theoretically, if you were to do that, it would still, you could be balanced in it.
Having an NPC or a monster, like, is it more powerful? Yes. But in terms of, like, balancing something so it doesn't break the game?
Yeah.
For the most part, something like a bonus to a skill proficiency that is probably used outside of combat, it may shift your narrative a little bit because something is so good at all of the things.
Right.
But it's not going to change what happens in combat, which is really where we're more concerned about mechanical balance. What that might do is shift the perception of balance. And that is also something to be conscious of. It is entirely possible to make something that's mechanically totally balanced, but people think it's overpowered. So I would be concerned about giving something all the proficiencies because people would think and view it as overpowered. Skill proficiencies, nah, it's not going to break the game.
Okay.
Also said as somebody who loves making skill monkey characters. So.
Okay.
Really, what we're looking at skills is we're going to just go through and you tell me why would it make sense for Pazuzu to be proficient in. We've already decided they're proficient in perception.
Right. Let's see here. Acrobatics.
They're all up there.
Absolutely.
They're all on. So acrobatics, if you want, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The thing I will say is that in general, most creatures, non-humanoid characters, in terms of NPC and monster stat blocks, don't get things like acrobatics and athletics. Because that's more of a trained skill, and most of the time these creatures are... Pazuzu didn't have to work at getting good at working on a balance beam. He's just dexterous as all hell. Right? So, I don't object to him having acrobatics, but... is Pazuzu doing backflips or walking tight ropes or parkouring?
I guess my argument to that is, if he's the god of the winds, he's flying out there like he's a blue angel, you know, just doing all sorts of maneuvers and can manipulate
I am
his flight.
absolutely. I was a bit playing devil's advocate there. I am fine with him having that.
Yeah.
All I am saying is that that's a good thing for you to be aware when creating stat blocks.
Okay.
And specifically, like Pazuzu, he doesn't need it. I'm fine with him having it. I have no argument against it, but he doesn't strictly need it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Animal handling, probably not. Uh-oh, did I break something? Something went crazy. Oh. Okay.
Yeah, you just have to change some of the spacing on things as you go. Arcana. Does Pazuzu know about magic stuff?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be he's an innate spellcaster. He's a demon. So I would say yes. He's a god of the winds. He can manipulate winds. But is that necessarily Arcana, though?
Well, why don't you take a look at Grazit, or Gratzt. Gratzt has innate spellcasting. He's a demon lord.
But he is not proficient in Arcana.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that we have to, that means no, but Arcana is arcane knowledge. You can be a spellcaster at, like, it's wizardy knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to know it. I have no objection. Again, we're talking god or demigod here, so that they innately know these things and are of older than time itself, right?
Yeah.
I have no objection to them having Arcana. But again, I'm just saying, this is a choice you're making. They don't need to be. Same as acrobatics.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not feeling it. I think for me, kind of what I've discovered, especially doing like story elos for my own design perspective, like if it's not, hey Aqua, salutations, and yeah, these are really good tips. Dragon is a freaking genius. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, salutations to you. What was I saying? If it doesn't instantly isn't an instant yes, and then I have to argue it, I'm not really feeling it. So then it's just my gut response is to not do it.
That's exactly kind of what I'm wanting you to think about. Like here is really what you're doing with skills. As I said, you are not setting. This is not a thing about this is really going to affect the balance of the game. It will in certain specific situational circumstances. It is more you are telling the player, the DM running this or GM running this, hey, they're proficient in deception. They're really good at lying. Like if you look at Gratz, right? Gratz has a charisma of 26, so +8. Gratz is proficient in deception, so he's good at lying. He's proficient at insight. He's good at reading people and figuring out their desires, right?
Yeah.
And he's good at persuading them. He's good at manipulating or talking people into doing what he wants or what they want, which I told you before when we talked about Gratz has the narrative of the seductive demon, right?
Right.
The pleasure demon. So depending on what you do for proficiencies, you're reinforcing a narrative. Yeah. And that's what I want you to think about for this. So they have naturally good stats, so they're going to have good bonuses to everything regardless. This is you trying to conjure up the idea of Pazuzu.
He's referring to Gratzt, which is page 149 of Mordecai's Tome of Foes there, Aqua. Graz apostrophe ZT.
Yeah, it's either Gratz or Grazit, depending on what version of the nerddom you come from. We were using Gratz as an example because we were actually looking at all of the demon lords, but Gratz is, though, a large creature, and currently we have this classified as medium. Gratz is the most humanoid of the demon lords because some of the other ones, like the Demogorgon, or gigantic, or, you know, they're big pile of ooze or things like that, more than they are a relatively humanoid creature.
Mm-hmm. And Pazuzu is, I guess, kind of arguably more humanoid than you might see in other mythologies.
Yeah,
he's pretty chill for the most part.
Yeah, from what we know, he's sort of a human-ish body with a strange demony head, and 4 wings.
Exactly. One for the wins.
1 wing for each of the 4 winds.
Yep. Okay. So, and
So
you
then
know, going back to what you were saying on Grat's skills here, deception, insight, perception, persuasion. He's a demon. He's like the seductive demon, right? So, is this more for like flavor purposes that he's proficient in these, or does it serve a practical purpose within the game?
It's more for and hello, dear Renee. Thanks for the lurk.
Salutations, Renee. Hello.
Screen, but good to see you here.
Yeah, where's Ecrium at?
But mostly this is for flavor. But exactly, Runus. That's exactly what it is. Runus Paths has got it on it, which is what I was trying to say, which is that it is you're reinforcing a narrative and it guides the DM of how they might play this creature. Mm-hmm. So Gratz is a character who, if your players meet them in a non-combat setting, right? Especially if they meet them at a lower level where maybe combat, they don't have a hope in hell.
Yeah.
Gratz will likely try and learn things about them. Figure out what their desires are. Might try and manipulate them into doing things that Gratz wants them to do. And how will they do that? Well, they'll either lie to them or they'll persuade them with the truth. Little aside, I'm not the biggest Trekkie out there. In fact, I'm not a Trekkie, but I've watched most of Star Trek. And there is a great line from Star Trek Deep Space Nine in which the Doctor asks his friend Garrick, "Is anything you told me about you true?" "Oh, Doctor, it was all true. Even the lies, especially the lies." Gratz is a character who can lie and manipulate by telling the truth. Right?
Yeah.
So by giving those proficiencies, you are informing the DM that in a role-play setting, these are some skills you can rely on, right? Whether you ever roll the dice or not, it's
little hints. It's hints and tips on how to roleplay the thing. I got you. So, in that case, I mean, Pazuzu, from, my interpretation of Pazuzu, and, fusing that with, like, the historical, what we know about Pazuzu, and trying to kind of bring that to life within the story. He's a protector, again, of pregnant women. He's a protector of children. He has his nemesis who loves to, create havoc with children and pregnant women. So I would not say that he's necessarily super, trying to get his way in the matter. He's not trying to manipulate emotions or manipulate people.
And he has super high charisma. He doesn't need to learn the skill. He's
exactly
a demon king. So I think it's totally reasonable for you to go that even in the darker versions of Pazuzu, his thing isn't so much lying. It's in some he's more menacing and, like, you might give him intimidation. Right?
Yeah. Where is that? That would make sense.
But deception you may not need.
I think you're right on that. Absolutely.
So, okay, Garrett. So now I want you to... Let's see if now you've wrapped your head around this a little more. Let's see if you can rapid fire these one by one. Deception, yes or no?
No.
Okay. History.
I'm going to say yeah on history. I mean, if he's a demon, I would say he's pretty well versed. Hey, Nightman, you have a lovely evening, and I will see you next time also. Sleep well. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that. History, yeah, he's got, no, I'm going to say no, because that would be more religion, is what the argument I'm about to make would fall into religion. I think
that's a very good distinction of, because do they care, does Pazuzu care about the history of the,
no,
to use D&D vernacular, prime material domain plane? Not really.
Not really, no.
Like, insight.
Insight.
Are they good at reading people? Are they good at telling when people lie to them?
No. No, if I have to think about it, it's no.
Yeah, that's fine.
Intimidation, yes. Investigation, I would say so. And the reason is, he has his nemesis. He's got to be on the lookout. He's going to be looking for clues. He's going to be, investigating that.
I'll
That's
support that
intelligence.
reasoning.
5 plus 7, 12. Medicine. Yeah, medicine for sure. 14 on that.
Why?
Why? Because of his, he's like a spiritual midwife, for lack of a better phrase. And with that, I think comes a proficiency in medicine.
Well, but again, if that's how the direction you want to go, I will say from my knowledge of Pazuzu and the research I did and us doing that, Pazuzu is a protector of them. Pazuzu isn't delivering the babies, right?
No, he's not.
It's more he's stopping the other demons. So I would say medicine. Is Pazuzu going to heal people?
Yeah, that's fair. So, no.
Yeah.
Nature, the wins.
Nature and survival are both potentially good because of the idea of the wins. Yeah. I would support those. Persuasion and performance, I would say, are probably out.
Yeah. Religion, the dude's a demon. But does that mean he studied religion? I guess not. But he's also a demon. What is
it's up? That's up to you. The king of demons would have knowledge of them. I don't mind that. Again, Garrett, this is all like the saving throws. Let's do the first draft. We can always eliminate a couple more.
That's true. Sleight of hand, no. Stealth, not really. Survival, sure. There we go.
Sure, stealth is a no?
I mean, he's dexterous. I don't see him as like a sneaky, stealthy kind of. Well, I mean, he's on the winds too, but I don't see him.
Well,
being sneaky.
Does Pazuzu come into a home invisible to protect? Now we might give them the invisibility spell. I've already thought of that. So, but if Pazuzu is protecting things unseen, or does Pazuzu just stride in, head out, wings out? Hi, I'm Pazuzu. I'm here to protect you from the evil demons.
In our, I guess, setting guide world, our interpretation of it, I imagine that there is no like different dimension that they exist on like our plane, for lack of a better word. So people can see them, people can interact with them, because Humbaba can be seen. Humbaba could be seen in the Cedar Forest.
But is Pazuzu always letting themselves be seen? That's what I'm asking. Or does Pazuzu sometimes come in the night when he knows the other demons will be hunting and wait and lurk for them to show up, and then rips the throat out of the other demon before it does something bad?
I guess that's a fair argument.
Again, Garrett, don't let me talk you into something that is a narrative you don't want. Part of this is me being devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Part of it is, like, I also, in the case of stealth, I would take stealth over, like, even investigation in my head when designing Pazuzu. I would take it over acrobatics. I'm not saying don't take those things, but in my head, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. This is your baby. Do what makes sense for you.
Stealth and acrobatics. Yeah. And survival. I think that's fair. I think that makes sense.
We can always cut more if we want.
Yeah. I mean, those are a lot of skills, so we might have to. But for the first go around, this makes sense to me.
Gotcha. Now, we have a couple things we can look at. There are other special rules and abilities we can give them. We've given a couple already, like magic resistance, so advantage on saving throws against magic weapons. All of their attacks are going to count as magical for the point of overcoming resistance, so they can hurt other demons and things like that, right? Languages is a thing we can look at, but you also have to define what languages are in your world.
Yeah.
Right?
We haven't made it that far yet.
So we can just leave that blank for now. They will no doubt at least have the equivalent of, like, common and abyssal, because the language of demons.
Right.
But that is something you can do from there. What would you rather do right now? Do you want to look at starting to do their actions and bonus actions? Specifically with actions, the first ones we're going to start with are the basic attacks. Or do you want to look at spellcasting first?
Let's go ham. Let's go with spellcasting. While the getting's good and the dexterity is high, and and the day of teaching has not caught up to me yet. Let's go ham. Let's do the hard stuff.
Okay. So, for those watching along, I prepped Garrett with, we're going to use D&D Beyond to look at some spells, because I like books, but the fact that D&D Beyond has all of the spells listed and you can search them by category and order them in certain ways does make life a little bit easier for you.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
So I think when you're designing stuff, using that resource, even if like you haven't bought all the stuff on D&D Beyond, like I haven't, so sometimes I'll find the spell on D&D Beyond and then I'll look up the rules in the book in front of me, but it gives me the list to start from. What do you want to start with, Garrett? Do you want to start with the spells that are kind of more about the four winds, aka wind-based spells that come from probably the druid spell list is we're going to look at? Do you want to look at the protector spells that banish other demons and things like that we're largely going to pull from the cleric list? Or do you want to move to something like the necrotic based spells, because atrophy and entropy and withering life is kind of how Pazuzu seems to get the job done when Pazuzu is angry.
Yeah, let's go with some wins. Aqua asked,
Okay.
Do you think Wizard is gonna do the Pokemon TCG thing where they provide access codes with products? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we may see something along those lines come whatever D&D 5.5 or D&D 6th edition, which is going to be backwards compatible. That's all we know, whatever it is. In 2024, we may start to see some stuff like that, but it's going to take a while because there's no way for them to backdate that. Also, they're not willing. Why would they do that to themselves? Yep. But I do think, depending on how the stuff with D&D Beyond develops, and how much success and how much they decide to now pull everything into D&D Beyond, to the point of other third-party things like Roll20 and Virtual Tabletop being less of a thing, maybe more of that will happen. I'd certainly appreciate it, because as somebody who likes the books and buys the books and doesn't buy anything on D&D Beyond, but does recognize the usefulness of that tool, I can't afford to buy both. So if they want to give some sort of codes like that would make it at least discount, I would appreciate it. But if that does happen, it's going to be a while. Don't expect everything to switch on May 18th when the official change happens.
I would make the argument here, not that this has anything to do with Pazuzu, but since it was brought up, if we look at Magic Arena versus Magic the Gathering as a case study, Wizards is really good about trying to get every penny out of your wallet. And no, they will not give you anything for free ever. And the best they can do is make you pay more money for stuff.
They're really good at licensing stuff to other people, right? Like, that's the thing is, I don't know Magic that well, but I'm pretty sure the video game isn't developed by Wizards of the Coast. It's a third party adapting it to the virtual medium.
Wait, say that one more. Which one's adapting to the digital?
For the Magic. So the Arena that's played online, that isn't an in-house thing designed by Wizards of the Coast.
That is in-house. They have outsourced Magic Online recently to some company, but I don't remember who it is.
But the point is, and even with a lot of the licensed D&D video games and things like that, they're really good at licensing their material to other people. So in some circumstances, if people are paying them to use their intellectual property in another medium, and then they get a percentage of that, right? They tend not to, that tends to work well for them. Why would they give more stuff away?
Yeah, they're very much. I don't think they're going to give anything away, unfortunately. So, but I mean, only time will tell. I have no crystal ball to look into.
I will say, if you are D&D Beyond user, I don't think the merger is going to do anything but good things for you. There may be some other complications for other third-party things or licensing of those of us who design our own stuff, but it's going to take a while.
Oh yeah, it's going to take some time.
So now that we're looking at druid spells specifically, because that's going to be a good place to start to pull a lot of the wind spells from. Almost all of those will be on the druid list. There's other ways to get them. Most of them are in the Elemental Evil Companion, but some of them are in the Player's Handbook. So really, I think the druid list is just a really easy way for us to make it so we only have, 8 pages of spells to potentially scroll through, and we're not going to have to go through all of them. As opposed to, dozens.
Yeah.
What I'm going to suggest right now for you, Garrett, is rather than write them into the stat block, you've got just your cursor beside things right now. Write them there and the level of the spell they are, and then we'll figure out how they go into the stat block after.
Yeah.
Right? So we're just going to make a rough list, and then we'll decide which of them he can do at will, which of them he can do X number of times a day.
Okay.
Things like that. So the first one, absolutely,
We've got Gust.
is a cantrip.
Yeah.
Gust.
That's pretty
Yes.
pretty easy, right on hit, just on the nose. Boom. Easy gimme.
Yeah.
You seize the air and compel it, right? Okay.
Yep. And in terms of cantrips, there are other ones that could be done. I don't think they're necessary. Like, you could argue Thunderclap, but nah, I don't think that's necessary on Pazuzu. We'll give them some cool attacks.
Yeah.
You could even make an argument for Guidance, that they can cast that on other people, but nah, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. Okay,
First level spells. The first one, Absorb Elements, is always a... So we're aiming for a CR of between 21 and 24. So a +7 proficiency modifier, about the same level of power of the Demon Lords. But Garrett hadn't fully decided what level they wanted them to be. It's more just, we know that we want them to be a demon king of demigod-like power. So they are over CR 20. And I don't think we're quite verging into the closer to CR 30 Tiamat Bahamut harass territory.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got, for sure, Gust win, obviously. Now,
Yeah.
say this one more time for me, because my brain works so very slow. Instead of writing it in the stat block, do what with the cursor?
Where you currently have your cursor, just write Gust and Cantrip.
Oh, on this. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
So this is going to be innate spellcasting then.
Yeah, this is going to be innate spellcasting.
Okay.
Yeah, just here where I'm clicking the cursor over beside the stat block. No, not even in the stat block. Just put it here.
Oh, just over here. Oh, there you
Here, I'll put
are.
it next.
Hello, I found your cursor. There, it was hiding from me. I've
Yeah.
got it zoomed into like
And just
super
no,
high.
that's fine. So Gust Cantrip. So this is just so we have a rough list, so that then we can insert it into the stat block in the way that we want it to. Because Gust will be an at-will one, we know that, but some of the other ones, we're not sure how often we're going to want Pazuzu to be able to use them.
Okay.
So I don't want to put them in yet, right?
Gotcha. Right.
So
let's see,
Absorb Elements and Animal Friendship. Absorb Elements is a great reaction-based spell. I don't think it's necessary because Pazuzu is already immune or resistant to most of those damage types already.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's just
so
kind of beating a dead horse, I think, at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So go to page 2. I don't think Beast Bond or Charm Person or...
Let me scroll back up.
First thing that makes sense, though. Detect magic. Can Pazuzu sense the presence of magic innately?
If he's a demon, that would kind of make sense.
The king of demons? That seems... This is also the first of what I'm going to tell you is, in terms of first and second level spells, once you get higher than that, it gets a little funkier. But first and second level spells, if they require concentration, I have no problem giving them to Pazuzu specifically as at will powers. There is no limit to the number of times that Pazuzu can do it. One, because we're probably going to skew to not damaging spells with this. But two, if they're concentration, Pazuzu can still only do one of them at once. Right? So, yes, Pazuzu could have Detect Magic on 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? But if they do, they're not using any other concentration spell. Right?
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So you're still making them choose which one they use. Detect magic, I would say yes. Detect poison and disease, you could make an argument for it, but I don't think it's necessary.
I think, what was it? Detect disease?
Detect poison and
poison
disease.
And disease.
It's not, and this is what I'm going to say, Garrett. I want you to... I know it's easy to get into the, oh, could we? But, like, look at the spell, and if it automatically doesn't say yes to you...
The poison's a poisonous creatures, really. Disease isn't... you can design, or disease. I don't know. The name of the spell versus what the spell does is a little bit misleading, because I was going to say, well, if he protects, pregnant women from...
But he protects them from demons who come to do things to them. He doesn't...
So that's not really the disease... It's more the demon acting evil. So no, I don't think so.
Yeah. So, fog cloud.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
So I have no problem if you want to put fog cloud there. It's again a concentration spell. It's not an important one for them to have, but I don't mind if it's there.
How do you know it's concentration?
It's specifically for D&D Beyond. It has the little C and a diamond.
Ah, okay.
That's how they represent it on D&D Beyond.
Gotcha.
The little R is ritual, but we aren't giving him ritual casting, so that doesn't matter.
Okay. Dust Devil.
Yep, Dust Devil is entire... whoa, you're at Dust Devil already?
Yeah, that's second
what
level.
What level is Dust... Yeah, so you're already on second level spells. Okay, no, I'm just making sure we're in the same place.
Okay.
Because, yeah, you didn't see anything else you wanted. That's fine.
Yeah, not really. Purify food and drink, maybe, but not really.
Yeah, I agree. That would be one I'd put in as a maybe. Dust Devil is entirely possible. But now look at it. I'm happy to have it there for now. I will say this is a question for you to have in the back of your head. Is this something that you think is important for them to have as a combat ability, or are you just going, it's a wind spell, why not add it?
Mostly that, the latter, for sure.
Yeah. So, I have no objection if you want it to be there, but, any creature within just push 10 feet. I don't mind it, but if you scroll a little further down, Gust of Wind.
Yeah, that was going to be my next thing I was going to say.
Of those two spells, which one do you think fits Pazuzu more?
Well, Gust of Wind, I think.
Yeah, I would say you don't need Dust Devil. If you want it to be there, I have no objection to it. It's fine. This is not me trying to talk you out of it.
Yeah. Conjuration, evocation. I'm gonna put them both there for right now, just so I guess so we can have a collection of spells, and then we can go by and take them out if we need to. That's not what I meant. That's what I meant. There we go. Hold person, lesser restoration. No.
Yep, I don't think anything else on that page is necessary. Again, are there going to be other things we could add? Yes. I mean, Skywrite is possible, but I don't think you need it.
Yeah.
So if we go to the 4th page, Warding Wind. This is one of the other reasons I don't think Dust Devil is necessary, is I would rather give this.
Okay. That's a 2nd level spell.
And anybody in chat, if you have questions beyond what Garrett and I are doing, please go right ahead and ask.
Yeah, that's why we're streaming this, so we can all learn together in this masterclass-ish stream here.
That's entirely what it is, because as much as this is something I've done more of and know in quotes more about, I learned by working with other people. So please ask questions. Warding Wind, I think, is absolutely on point for this, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Strong wind, 20 miles an hour. It does all of these things. I think that is, if he's God of the Winds, of course.
Yeah. What I am going to say, Garrett, is this is another moment for you to remember, though, that right now we're not caring about this. If you choose to publish this, other than on DM's Guild, there are many of these spells that we cannot use.
Right.
Because they're not all in the open gaming license.
Which is unfortunate.
Correct.
But
Wither and Bloom is an interesting spell that deals with the idea of entropy and decay and can heal people. However, it is from Strixhaven in one of the newest books, and I don't think it's critical for Pazuzu, and it is 100% one that you cannot use unless you go to DM's Guild.
Yeah.
How does an old eldritch god having a draconic nature because he eats dragons sound? That checks out. I mean, you're talking to a dragon who is always disproportionately thinks dragons should be among the more powerful and magical creatures in any fantasy setting, but, I have some personal bias there. That said, if that is in any way, shape, or form true, an eldritch god consuming dragons because they are innately magical and powerful beings, and himself and said eldritch being then becoming more draconic in nature, yeah, that makes sense. That also resonates with, if we're talking about classical mythology, there's always the idea of warriors who kill dragons and bathe in dragons' blood gain benefits from it. They often also are all cursed by it. So you don't need to go very far into Norse mythology and Fafnir, the dwarf, who then becomes a dragon and things like that to find things like that. So checks out to me. Where are you on? What page are you on, Garrett?
I am looking at Wither and Bloom, and now we are on 3rd level spells Call Lightning.
Yeah. Call Lightning works for weather and things like that, but I don't think it's as much on point with the winds.
Yeah, I don't think so
and
either.
I think we want to kind of stray away from general weather and sky and more to wind specifically.
I think you're exactly right on that. And that's kind of why I'm kind of thumbing through these, because nothing is...
Yeah. Sleet
Commune
Storm
with nature, maybe.
One.
But even then, not really.
Commune with nature.
Oh, here we go. I mean, I skipped ahead to 5th level a little bit, but Freedom of the Winds.
Freedom of the... If that is the spell I think it is...
this is unofficial material, apparently.
Yeah, that's from Critical Role.
Oh, that's Critical Role.
So, don't even touch that one,
Yeah,
because that one you can't use regardless of where you publish it.
Yeah.
But you did skip one that is useful. If you go back to page 5, right?
For some reason, I don't have pages. I just have a long, giant web page.
You
but I
just
can
have
control
all
F
on
for
one
it.
page? Okay, so if just go back to near the end of 3rd level spells. Okay?
There's Wind Wall.
Correct. That's what I wanted you to see. I think the god of demon king of the 4 winds kind of needs to have Wind Wall.
Almost said 3rd level. No, 3rd wall. No, 3rd level, not 3rd wall. Okay, so we've got Wind Wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then there wasn't really much in 4th level.
There is one spell, although it's not for wind stuff, it's for other reasons, but you might as well put it down now because I know you're going to want it at some point. Blight.
Blight with a B in 4th level?
Yep. It's the first 4th level spell.
That is
for druids.
Alphabetical. I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, and that's how alphabetical order works. Okay, so energy wash. Okay, so yeah, this isn't necessarily for the wind flavor, but for the I'm a demon flavor.
Yeah, this is for the entropy and atrophy.
And what level spell was that? I know I just looked at 4th level. Okay.
4th level. It's the first 4th level spell you come across alphabetically in druids. Scrolling down, there is the ability of conjuring elementals, specifically air elementals, if that is something you wanted. However, I don't think we need to do that as a spell. If you decided that was something you wanted, I would make it a feature.
Yeah, I think.
Or even just say that they are often accompanied by.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to give them the player spell to do it. Freedom of movement is possible. It's very wind flavored, or can be very wind flavored, but I don't think it's necessary. And Aqua, what do you mean by the reflavor spells? I mean, I am a big fan of reflavoring spells, and 100% what I would say, Garrett, is if we find that eventually you want to publish this not on DM's Guild, and therefore there's certain spells that we cannot use,
yeah,
what you can use is those spells as a template to tweak them a little and maybe make them as features rather than spells, so that you're not actually using that material.
Yeah.
Right? So there are ways. So I'm a big fan of reflavoring things.
You touch a willing creature for the duration, movement unaffected by difficult terrain. Movement.
Which you can do that to yourself too. But again, yeah. I don't think it's necessary.
I think, yeah, that's more of like an extra, more so than a necessary.
Yeah. However, one thing that they can 100% do is 5th level spells. Control winds.
Oh.
Freedom of the winds they can't have, but control winds makes sense.
Yeah. 100-foot cube. It's a big cube. And that's 5th level. Awesome.
Yeah. Scrolling down further, Maelstrom is a similar thing that is possible, but it is more tied to water, so I'm going to suggest no.
Yeah.
Because winds. And we're trying to be very narrow in that.
You know, what happens if I just control F and I'm looking at winds? Control winds, freedom of the winds. That's really the word winds, but if you type in wind...
that will give you a bunch of the spells, but it will not give you all of them. There's a few others, and that's why I'm having us do it this way. But in terms of 6th level spells, there are 2 for you to consider. Investiture of Wind.
Yeah. And then there's Wind Walk, too.
Correct. Windwalk you don't necessarily have to do, but I don't mind it. You essentially make, Pazuzu can make themselves and anyone else they want of the wind.
It's very name
It's
of the
not
wind.
strictly necessary. Yeah. It's not strictly necessary. Also, it's a weird spell. It has a casting time of 1 minute and a duration of 8 hours. It is not a combat spell, but I have no objection to the King of the Wind Demons being able to do it.
Yeah. So if it's an at-will spell, right? Like at-will spell casting, does that monster have to go through the rigmarole of casting it for a minute and then all of that, or does it just happen?
Yeah, no, you would. It doesn't change this. What at will does is means you can cast it whenever you don't have a limit on the number of times you can cast it.
Okay.
It does not change the components of the spell or the casting time unless it tells you it does for some other reason. It just means you don't have to worry that I can only cast it so many times. So these higher level spells, we will likely say that they can cast it once a day or twice a day, right?
Yeah, that would make sense.
Looking at the last spells that could possibly be considered, Whirlwind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just looking at that one.
I would say that makes sense. And control weather could, but I don't think that's really the way we want to go, right?
Yeah.
Although, actually, you know how we could do it? We say control wind, and then we will put in brackets wind only. Control weather,
wind only.
Wind only.
That would be awesome. Yeah, so it'd just be wind only, calm, gale, form. Okay.
Yeah.
That's an 8th level.
So that is our first kind of round of them. What do you want to look at now? Do you want to look at the cleric, or do you want to look at the demony damagey things? Or do you want to take a break from spells briefly, so we look at it like an attack to give your brain a break from scrolling from things? It's totally up to you, Garrett. I can bounce around. I can continue down this path.
Let's do some cleric while we're here. Since we're in the scrolling mood, might as well just keep the flow rolling.
For anyone watching, this is one of the more arduous things about doing homebrew, is when you are trying to do spell casting in it, and this is if you're making subclasses, for instance, that gives spells of 1st to 5th level as part of the subclass. Scrolling through all the spells in the game to figure out if there's which ones you want to use can be very slow. Now, you have a clear idea in your head. Often I know what spells I want to pull, but I still kind of go through things to make sure there's nothing I'm not I should have thought of, right? So if we're looking at cleric, in terms of cantrips, we talked about guidance before, but I don't think it's something we really want to do.
Yeah.
Spare the dying. Can they stabilize a thing that is at 0 hit points?
Yeah, I would say so.
I'm good with them not healing, but they can stop death, right?
Yeah,
they can just kind of go.
That's a very kind of, in my head anyway, the way I interpret it.
Yeah.
That's a very Pazuzu-ish spell. Spare the dying.
Spare the
dying.
dying.
Cantrip.
Cantrip. Okay. Essentially, making something at will just makes it a cantrip regardless of what level it is.
Yeah, that's true.
in terms of one that does necrotic damage, Toll the Dead does work, but meh. I don't know that it's strictly necessary. I think if we want to give them a ranged necrotic attack, we'll just give them a ranged necrotic attack. We don't have to give them a cantrip.
Yeah.
Spells. Bane is possible if they cast Bane on other demons to make it hard for them to attack or do their thing. On the other hand, is Pazuzu going to cast Bane on them to give them disadvantage on... Oh, sorry. A negative D4 to their attacks and saving throws? Or is Pazuzu just going to go up and rip their head off?
Yeah, I would say the latter. That's
Okay.
That's
so
a
we
very Pazuzu
move
thing.
away from that.
Yeah.
Detect evil and good, though.
That for sure. Absolutely.
That goes right next to, like, detect magic of just like, hey, you can do this at will, but it's concentration. So you can do one of those things at a time, not both.
Right.
I don't think we need anything else from page 1. So we're into
What about
first level
inflict
spells.
wounds?
So inflict wounds 100% is a good idea. Here's the thing I will say about this. For Pazuzu, I don't think we need to give them the spell. I think we're going to give them an attack that their claw does slashing damage, and then it also does necrotic damage.
Okay, yeah.
They don't need to cast inflict wounds. Their claws do that just because. Because they're Pazuzu.
Yeah, I got you.
And if what we'll do when we look at the demons from Mythic Odysseys of Theros, right? Which we were going to use as a bit of an example. Guess what? They do that. They use their claws, and then they also do additional necrotic damage. But we could remember the 3d10 necrotic damage as a base thing. That is not a bad idea to have.
Yeah.
Right? Protection from evil and good. 100%.
Yeah. Somewhere in here is cleric. There it is. Okay. Going. Blindness, deafness, not really.
Oh, you're already on. Before you get that far, Sanctuary. This because we're not making them a healer, but you do want the protector.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. That's what level is that? That's first level.
That would be, I think, good for first levels. I don't think Shield of Faith really makes sense. Blindness, Deafness could be a demon-y kind of an ability, but I don't think it really drives the narrative you're looking for.
No. I think that's not very flavorful.
Scrolling down. I mean, Bestow Curse could work, but it doesn't really feel like it's where you're going with Pazuzu.
Yeah.
Dispel Magic could work.
Yeah, that would be, going against his nemesis, right? If that Tal, they wreak chaos, so yeah, was it Dispel Magic?
Yeah.
And that's a second or third level spell?
Third level spell. Spell Magic and Counterspell are both third level. Counterspell is also possible, but I don't think that's really Pazuzu. I don't think it's in the moment I wave my hand and the spell goes away.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then... Dispel... I'm reading Dispel Magic. Choose one creature, object, or magical effect within range. Any spell of third level or lower on that target ends. Okay, yeah, that's... I think that.
Now, what I will say is because we're going to give this as innate spellcasting. Unless we specify otherwise, it automatically just casts it at 3rd level, so it means it doesn't automatically work against higher level spells. But that's
Right.
fine, because I don't think we're making Pazuzu a caster first and foremost. They don't have to cast it at a higher level.
Yeah. Remove curse.
Remove curse could be there. It's up to you as a way to counter things demons have done. I don't mind that if you want remove curse in there. But before you get there, magic circle. Which is also a 3rd level spell. Where you choose an area and all of a sudden demons, fae, any other certain type of creature that you specify cannot walk into that circle. That is very much the protection aspect of Pazuzu.
Yeah. A lot of these spells at this 3rd level on the cleric are very similar. It's just kind of like, what area do they impact more so than, they do different things.
But yeah, remove curse I'm fine with. Revivify, you could go with things like that, but I don't think we're not having them as a healer. We're having
Guardian.
them. They'll stop things.
Yeah.
But banishment, 100%, because Pazuzu makes other demons go away.
Yeah. That's a 4th level.
Yep. And yes, Aqua, I know this was a while ago that you said don't forget your bosses can do some custom magic. 100% we may customize some of this, and what we may do is not end up using all of these directly as spells. We might adapt them, some of them, into features. However, for the purposes of what we're doing right now, this is not a character who is spellcasting focused necessarily. We're just doing it to add certain things to them. So I don't think we're going to go super custom with the magic for them. What we may do is adapt some of these spells to just like an action that they can take once a day and not do it as a spell. But for now, if the spell fits close enough, just use the spell, then we don't have to write something new. 5th level spell, Dispel Evil and Good.
I was typing it as you said that.
Oh, I like this. And another 5th level spell that I know you want is Hallow. Which for 24 hours, you kind of bless an area and make it so things can't enter it.
Yeah, that sounds just like Pazuzu.
Yep. I think I'm just scrolling down. Harm is possible as something that they can do for a good amount of necrotic damage.
Mm-hmm.
By a good amount, I mean 14d6.
That's a lot of d6. That's so much d6.
But they're not going to be able to do this a bunch, so
whatever
I'm gonna suggest
upset him is gonna be very dead.
Yeah.
6th level.
Yeah. Now, again, Garrett, I think we are probably going to cut some of these spells.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But, not a true scene, sure, except we already gave him true sight, so it's not necessary. One thing you could consider is plane shift. Can Pazuzu transport to other planes, and can they take other people with them?
I think so. I mean, that's what demons do, I would say. So, yeah.
Plane shift. And our last kind of list of spells to go for our first round through this sort of thing is going to be the necrotic spells, but we're already going to have covered some of them, so it'll go real fast. Right?
Yeah. Filter spells. All right, let's do that. It's loading.
So this is the one. So all spells, but we are looking specifically at necrotic. There are only 2 pages of this. Chill Touch is a good cantrip to have in mind. However, what I will say is if you like the idea of something like Chill Touch, we're just going to give them an ability that is that. We're not going to give them the cantrip. We're going to give them a ranged ability where they pull out something soul.
Yeah. Okay, I did this in the wrong thing. Let me fix my boo-boo here. Filter spells one more time. Okay, now we've got all necrotic spells. I did it in the cleric one. I meant to do it on.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay.
Again,
Chill Touch. That's where we're at. Okay.
Yeah, Chill Touch. I think we might base a ranged attack on this if you want them to have a ranged attack, right? Like that isn't a spell slot that they can just do. We can do one that is essentially Chill Touch because you reach out with your spellcasting modifier and make it attack at something further away and pull out its soul. Right?
Yeah.
That's fine. But I don't think we need to make it that cantrip, because then why? Somebody has to look up the cantrip? No, we just make an ability that kind of works like that.
Right.
So if you want to make a note of Chill Touch for something like that as an attack, great. But I don't think we need the spell.
Did we talk about inflict wounds?
We did, but we were saying inflict wounds. What we were going to do is we were just going to add necrotic damage to their claw attack.
That's because that's what they do on Theros, basically. That's right.
Yeah, Hex is possible if you wanted, but I don't think it's necessary because we're going to already have their attacks just do extra necrotic damage.
Yeah, I think that's kind of that flavor thing, right? You don't need Hex if their claws do the damage.
Yeah. There's things like life transference or vampiric touch, but I don't think we need them.
I don't think so either. Yeah, this is there. I don't think there's a lot on here that we need. I mean, yeah, he does battle, but he's not like a warrior demon. He's a guardian demon, and so he's not. I don't see him doing much fighting.
Yeah. And if he does, he's using his claws.
Exactly.
So, like, things having, like, blight and harm as things he can do occasionally makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we've already got those on here.
Yeah. I will say Destructive Wave could work if you wanted. It's normally a paladin spell. What I'd specifically do is have it say Destructive Wave, necrotic damage only.
Take 5d6 necrotic damage as well as 5d6. I think, just necrotic damage instead of radiant or
But,
necrotic.
but we also don't need to do that.
Well, okay, now here's the question,
We could
right?
just make that as an ability.
Is thunder damage kind of wind damage?
Sometimes, yeah. And wind is one of those... It's the element that is hardest to define. Often when things are happening, people either have that do like the winds whip up and bludgeoning damage is caused, or it's thunder damage, or there's lightning damage involved because lightning comes from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the hardest one to quantify. Sometimes force damage is used, but yes, that is how I would flavor it in this case.
Yeah, I think so too. Because that would be both best of both worlds, right? You'd have wind and you'd have necrotic.
Correct, which is why I suggested it. So
Yeah.
destructive wave can be added and just put the necrotic damage only.
Okay. Hi, Trouble. Salutations to Trouble. Trouble jumped in. Chris jumped in. My one and only. The rock to my dragon. The dragon to my rock.
Hello there, Chris. Good to have you here. You guys are going to work on some Story Ellis stuff tomorrow, are you not?
That is true. That it's Wednesday. It's World Building Wednesday, of course.
So, that means we've now got a good list of spells.
Oh, we've got so many spells. We got spells for days.
But that's great. So we know we can start slotting that stuff in. I'm going to suggest to you that before we actually start slotting them in and deciding which ones can be used X number of times a day, what we do is figure out multi-attack and what their attacks are, because what their attacks are will define, like, okay, like as we said, we know we're going to maybe do something that's kind of like inflict wounds, and we know we're going to do something that is kind of like chill touch if you want to do, or we may if you want to have a ranged attack, right?
Yeah.
So if we build those out, right, then we know that, okay, we don't if we're doing that, right, we don't necessarily have to worry about some of the other spells. And if we think that's good enough, maybe then things like, ooh, do we really need Blight? It's cool, but maybe we don't need it because we're already doing it if we've already got that figured out.
Try to reduce the redundancy.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we may keep Blight, but it gives us that opportunity as opposed to have figured out all the spells and then go, why did we put the spell in there? We're doing that.
Okay.
So, for I think Gratz is a good example for us to look at for multi-attack, because Gratz only makes 2 attacks, and we look at how much damage Gratz does, right? Yeah. The other is if you go to Theros, and we're going to look at the demons in the Theros book. Oh, and I always love it when I open up to the right page. We are going to be looking at pages 219 to 221. They have 3 demons: the Abhorrent Overlord, the Eater of Hope, and the Nightmare Shepherd. All of which are much, much lower challenge rating than we're talking about.
Yeah.
But they are all flying demons that attack with claws and do extra necrotic damage. So my first question to you, Garrett, is, does Pazuzu... We've talked about making claw attacks, probably, right?
Yeah, these are from the Theros setting. They're ruinous.
Nope.
This is from Yeah, Mythic Odysseys
Yeah.
of Theros.
This is Theros, which one that is exactly the ones from the Theros setting, and part of the reason we're using them as an example, aside from the fact of necrotic damage on claw attacks, which great fit, it is also because this is another one that is loosely inspired by Greek mythology-ish via Magic the Gathering. I really love the Theros book. As a Greek mythology nerd, the book angers me, but I love it for a lot of other reasons.
Yeah.
But it's also probably one of the best references for Garrett in building his stuff based on Gilgamesh and the other aspects of Mesopotamian and Akkadian and Sumerian lore, because it is, again, taking real-world mythology from a couple thousand years ago and trying to pair it in the world of D&D. Also, these are demons that are specifically defined in this book as not working like demons do in typical D&D. So, what I was going to ask is, claws, do you like the idea of claws, Garrett?
I love the ideas of claws. I mean, anytime
What about a
anything's
bite?
depicted as, you know, they're like fisticuffs and the claws are out, right? So it
But-
fits perfect.
Do they're in terms of their physical weapons, are they just using claws, or do they have a bite? Looking at Pazuzu's face in the classic idols and such, it could go either way with that. They're not necessarily big prominent fangs that they have to be biting, but you know, if you look at the ones we're looking at in the Theros book, they don't have big mandible jaws that they have to be biting. But if you look at those illustrations, well, if they'd wanted to give them a bite attack, I wouldn't have said no, right?
Yeah.
So this is a question for you.
I don't think so. I'm going to say no on the bite. And the reason is, I don't know. To me, bite seems very uncivilized, quote unquote, for lack of a better word. And this is, you know, a sentient demon and not really animalistic. So he's attacking with claws, not necessarily, you know, biting like a dog, if that makes sense.
Amazing. Yeah. So we know claws. So first things first. So go back to our stat block and multi-attack. Rather than the name, it's going to be Pazuzu makes number of attacks, and we'll decide what that is in a moment. Number of attacks with their claws. So, this is a question for you, Garrett, and it'll be more defined as when we actually decide how much damage it does. These lower level demons from Theros do 2 attacks, right?
Yeah.
Zuzu is going to do more damage than they are, right? We're going to up the damage quotient on that.
Right.
Gratz only does 2 attacks, but Gratz does a lot of damage, right?
Yeah.
So once we decide how much damage the attack does, I'm going to plant the seed of, we can either make the damage be enough that they only need to do 2 because they are the king of wind demons, therefore 1 swipe is more than enough, right? So only 2. Or you can decide, well, they're really dexterous and fast. They make 3 attacks, but each attack does a little less damage, but they do more of them. That's an option for you.
I think it's the former. And that's what, I mean, before you made that argument, what I envisioned in my head was the former. These 2, they make 2 attacks, so they've got 2 claws, but they're the king of demons, and he's Pazuzu, so he's
It's going to hit like a ton of bricks.
Exactly. And the dexterity part comes from the flying, not necessarily from the claws, although, I mean, it could go either way, I guess.
Okay, so for now, let's then say Pazuzu makes 2 attacks. Or actually, Pazuzu attacks twice with his claws. Rather than 2 attacks, it's just attacks twice with their claws. That would be the same language as Gratz.
Okay, so Eater of Hope says the Eater of Hope makes 2 attacks with its claws.
But that's also, an Eater of Hope is not a named character.
Okay, see, now that's really nitpicky. Not
Yeah,
on you,
it
but
is.
on the way D&D does it, the way that Wizards is
Yes,
phrasing
and Garrett, either way you would be fine. But we're citing official precedent. And yes, they are not always consistent.
Okay, so instead of Pazuzu makes 2 attacks with their claws, it should be phrased how again?
Pazuzu attacks twice with his claws.
Okay.
Done.
So I guess either way would be correct, right? Or is this more correct for some reason?
No. We are using Gratz as an example, and if you look at the other Demon Lords, it's a named character, so they tend to phrase things differently. Theros is a more recent book. If you want, I can double check in Fizbin's, which is a more recent book, of how they've phrased it. But
I don't think it matters. I'm just, getting in the weeds here, but
yes. For example, if I'm just looking at a Dragonborn of Tiamat, the Dragonborn makes 3 longsword attacks. So that would be virtually the same phrasing we're using.
Okay.
Sometimes the other phrasing is used more often if what we're talking about is something where they have options of different attacks. Like they can make 2 attacks with or this, right?
Okay.
This is perfectly reasonable phrasing. Always use existing stuff as precedent. Don't worry if you've used existing stuff as precedent. If there's a slightly different phrasing in one of the other versions, don't worry about it.
Well, they have many versions of the same thing anyway, as they've, patched them.
Exactly.
And errata. But
once Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse comes out, or it has to a certain extent, but this month it is released as a solo book.
Right.
That will be a good one to use as reference because it is going to have the most updated language that they have decided, like, okay, we did it a bunch of different ways. Mm-hmm. This is how we think is the clearest. So it'll be a useful reference book in that sense. But you're not wrong for doing it the other way.
Okay. So let me ask you this question as we move on through the chart. I've got claws, clearly, melee attack weapon. So, I'm going to show my novice here a little bit. But +8 to hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that phrase exactly mean? What does it mean exactly?
So the +8 to hit is when you roll a d20, you will add that. It's the same as when you're playing a character, right?
Okay.
Like you would have your, hey, I'm attacking with an axe, right? Axe is a strength-based weapon. I would add my strength modifier and my proficiency bonus, right?
So the stat block assumes that it's proficient in the weapon it's
Correct.
using. Okay.
Correct.
Makes more sense.
All that is and then the damage will be the plus there will be whatever the ability score is. Now, this actually leads to a good question, Garrett. Typically for physical attacks, strength is used, right?
I think the claws are a finesse weapon. I think that's where you're going with this.
Well, they are not a finesse weapon. We are not giving them the finesse property.
Right.
But
unofficially, they would be, I think.
But exactly. There is lots of precedent in the Monster Manual, in the original Monster Manual, not even the more recent books, of, well, for player characters, you either have to be a monk or using a finesse weapon.
Mm-hmm.
If it's an NPC or a monster, they can switch that. Oh, well, it's a goblin using a spear or a kobold using a spear. That is clearly based on their dex modifier, not their strength modifier.
Right.
It breaks nothing, right? Arguably, some of those weapons maybe should be finesse. But it's also, when you're balancing it for a monster stat block, it's slightly different than balancing it for a player. How that ties into class features, like, for instance, sneak attack.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So, if you want to make this dex, I have no objection. Typically, for a physical attack, it would be strength.
Yeah.
So, that means you get to determine what would be the plus to hit. It's their proficiency plus their dex. We're using dex, yes?
So that would be plus 15 to hit?
Correct. It's the same as like the dex save or the acrobatic skill.
Okay. That seems real high, but I don't know.
Well,
That could just
what
be me.
is Gratz?
That's a good question. Let me see.
Plus 13 to hit.
Oh, well, that's not that bad then. That's basically the same.
Yeah. No, now this is where I will go back to a discussion we had in our first meeting on this, right? Where, hey, Garrett, the 26 dex and the 26 charisma, maybe some of those stats could come down one notch. This is up to you. This is not me saying that they have to.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're looking at the plus 15 and going, ooh, that's maybe a lot. Maybe I'm making Pazuzu more powerful than I want them to be. Maybe take the dex down to a 25. Like, take the dex, wisdom, and charisma all down one notch.
I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
So that would go to plus 7 because it rounds up on the evens, right?
Yep.
Not 265. That's really powerful. That's too powerful. That's broken. Dex and then wisdom.
Take that down to like a 22 or 23.
Yeah, for plus 7.
Awesome. So that means you have to change all of the saving throws and all of the skills.
Everything has to come down by 1.
I know con didn't change.
Did I already do that one? I don't remember.
Con is too high though. Con should be a 12.
Oh, on the saving throw?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know how that got to 15. Okay.
Well, no, you just changed it instead of the Dex one.
Oh, whoops. Okay. 14, 11, 13. That's correct.
Religion doesn't change. You didn't modify it. So it'll still be a 12, as will investigation, as will nature, as will survival. No, sorry, survival will go down, Ron. You're correct, but it should still be a 13. It's wisdom based. Which means your passive perception will have gone down to 23 too.
Remind me one more time. I was going to ask you this earlier, but I forgot. I know you told me last time. I've slept since then. Passive perception is calculated.
So
10
passive
plus
ability scores. Yeah.
The thing? Okay.
Yeah. Passive scores are an average roll of 10 plus whatever your modifier to that skill would be.
Okay. I did remember.
Sorry.
I'm learning.
Yeah,
Look at me
you
go.
did.
Yay, Garrett.
Well, Garrett, you're taking a lot in. As you said, you're new to a lot of these things, and while you've played it, you don't always haven't known why exactly the things are the way they are.
Yeah. I'm a guy that needs to know why. That's why I'm terrible at math, because nobody can explain to me why things are the way they are. But
Well,
I love it.
I was, when I first met my now wife, when I was starting grade 10 and she was in grade 12, I was helping her with her math homework because she is incredibly intelligent but had not had math explained to her appropriately, and I had an early start on math stuff, and so teaching people in the way that they can learn is a very important skill to have.
Oh, absolutely. I could not agree more with you on that.
Yeah, you know that for certain. So yes, now this also means your if you look, the DC of your spellcasting will have changed as well, because your charisma went down 1. And the DC of that is 8 plus your proficiency.
Where is spellcasting DC?
In innate spellcasting.
Ah, okay. So that would be 22.
So, 8 plus 7 plus 7, yes, 22.
Okay.
So now we've modified all those things. So now we can go back to where we were, the melee weapon, right?
Yes. So we've got plus 14 to hit.
Yep.
Reach of 5 feet, one target.
The reach is at 5 feet is where I would leave it if, and I state if, because right now we have Pazuzu as being a medium creature because you decided that they might be big, right? Mm-hmm. But you kind of envisioned them of like they're a 7-foot person.
Yeah.
They're not a 10-foot person.
They're big by human standards. They're not necessarily big by D&D standards.
Yeah, D&D standards, we're talking they're the size of a Goliath or a full-blooded orc or a bugbear. Yeah. They're not the size of an ogre.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, that's fine. Then we'll only make it a 5-foot reach. If we were making them bigger, I would say their very long arms could have a 10-foot reach.
Yeah.
But if you're having them as a medium creature, 5-foot reach. Now, what we're going to do is this part here, which I will highlight. We will do the calculation first, and then we will have what the average is, right?
Okay.
So, we have to decide what the damage dice is for their claws. The way it normally works...
Looks like D8's the precedent here.
Well, it depends on which one you're looking at.
I'm looking at Theros.
Yep, no, but one of them, I believe, is 2d8. One of them is 1d8.
Oh, how many d8s? That's the question.
Yeah, well, but I would agree a d8 is a good thing, because in general what it is, again, with the new Mordenkainen's, it's going to be standard that any PC character with a natural weapon, it's a d6. Their claws are going to be better than that.
Yeah.
So I think doing a d8 would be fine. You could also, if we wanted to make it only a single d8, you could make it 2d4 or something like that, which is going to be the same max damage, but a higher average damage. But that's also not necessary. How powerful do you envision their claws being?
Pretty powerful, especially with that necrotic damage we're going to tack in on there.
Is it more powerful than a greatsword?
Oh, I would say so. I mean, this is something not from this world.
No, but before we even talk about necrotic damage.
Yeah.
Okay. So, 2d8 as opposed to the 2d6 of a greatsword.
Yeah.
Done. That's going to be 2d8 plus your dexterity modifier.
7. So 2d8 plus 7.
Correct. Now we calculate the average of that. So 2d8 would be 4. It's again, we talked about calculating average last time. It's essentially half of the thing. So it's an 8. It will be a 4. It'd be 4.5 would be average damage.
Right.
So the average damage from 2d8
would be 9.
Would be 9. Correct.
Okay.
So 9 plus 7 is putting us at 16.
16. Okay. So that would
be
16
put the
damage,
16,
right?
No, here.
Oh, that's...
Look at the way monster stat blocks are written. They actually present the average damage first and then the bracket after. The reason for that is, let's say you have a very complicated game going, there's too many things going. You don't have to roll the dice. You could just use the average every time. Okay. Or you could roll the dice because you want to give players the feeling of the dice being rolled, but you're like, I can't do the mental math. Oh, it's 16 damage. Or mix it up, call it 15, right?
Or you can be Renee and just max damage every time. Isn't that what he does for you guys?
He doesn't do max damage and he maxes out hit points.
Oh, that's right. That's what it was. I knew
He
it was
doesn't
something.
do max damage every time. He maxes out hit points for our home game pretty much every time because he knows we'll chew through it.
Yeah, because hit points can do the same
because
thing, right? There's an average hit points, but technically the hit points can be higher because that's just the average.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you have a large party and you're at a mid to high level and they're powerful characters and smart players, don't use the average hit points, up it a little bit. So
Okay.
that's the base. So this would be slashing damage, right?
Yeah.
So right in front of damage, slashing.
And then plus.
And after that, plus. And now we decide how much necrotic damage they're doing.
And we were going to use Blight as our...
Nope, we were going to use inflict wounds.
Oh, that's right.
Which inflict wounds is a base at first level, 3d10.
How do they phrase this? So 3d10. Oh, yeah. Even the claws here, that's basically what they do. They have inflict wounds attached to it. So plus 16.
Correct.
3d10.
Well,
So
what do they do in terms of necrotic damage? 2d6, 3d10
Nightmare
on the
Shepherd
Nightmare
does
Shepherd.
3d10, yeah. Necrotic damage.
So, what we're doing, so this is where now, is that enough?
I would say no, because if Nightmare Shepherd with a challenge level rating of 11 is doing this much necrotic damage.
But challenge rating is not the only, like, damage is not the only thing, because remember, they can also do damage via spells.
Well, that's true.
They also have a lot more hit points. We haven't decided how many hit points or what their armor class is, right? So it's not just about damage output from these attacks. But I agree. Let's look at how much damage Gratz does on average.
Wave of Sorrow is very similar. 3d6 acid damage.
On 4d6 on the first.
Yeah.
So it comes to a total of 30 points of damage on average. And what are we at right now?
We're at 32.
Correct. So, in theory, we're not far off.
Okay.
Do you want to add another D10? I have no objection to that. But you were the person who said, I don't really see Pazuzu as being like 100% combat oriented.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think he is.
But I will also offer another thing that we could add to this, and this is where it doesn't always have to be about raw damage output, right? Which is, what if when they do this, you then have to make a Constitution saving throw, and if you fail, the necrotic damage, that lowers your actual hit points. That damage doesn't heal.
Okay. Oh, that's
That is something that is something that exists in multiple existing monsters. I believe the Wraith in the monster manual is one we could look at to cite the wording for that.
Okay.
But the damage you take until you have a long rest, that damage sticks. And that so that if we're
Unhealable.
talking about atrophy, so that it's not the amount of damage has increased, but you're not healing back up from that.
Okay.
Again, this is something for you to consider. Garrett, do you want to up just raw damage, or do you want to have the a little more complicated, but there's a chance you're not healing from this?
I could see the argument either way, and I've got my gears turning. I think just upping the raw damage just to keep it simple, because there's a lot going on as is. So just to make it a little more simple.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So, what do you want? if you're imagining what level of inflict wounds is just constantly being cast as part of an attack? We just upping it to 4d10?
I would say 40
for an
10,
extra.
right? So that would be
Great. Another 5 points, 5.5, so that would be another 6 points of damage.
So 22.
Yeah.
I think that feels right to me.
8 point. Yep. So, and actually, this is where we can do a thing. Again, I told you that this is not actually the best thing ever, but using the monster manual, there is a make your own monsters section, correct?
Yeah,
And
in the Dungeon Master Guide?
Yeah, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, in the DMG, there is a make your own monsters, and we're looking at pages 274 is actually directly the page I want to be looking at, which is how much damage per round a creature of this sort of level is doing. Here's the thing. We're going to be less than that, but we're going to be much higher than that in other respects. We are likely going to have a higher AC. We do have a higher save DC. This is also on your off turns. This is what you're going to do. We're going to still have blight and other things that can potentially do more damage on other turns, right?
Right.
But we're talking on average, on a turn where they don't use any of their special stuff, they are still going to be doing 38 times 2, so 76 points of damage. I have no objection to that.
Yeah,
so that's 76.
Right, so
that's
CR 12.
Yeah, so that's low, but they will also have things they can do on other turns that maybe do more damage. Like, for example, let's say they did harm. That's 14d6.
That's a lot more d6.
Actually, it's not technically, because 14d6 on something like that, 14d6, so that's 14 times 7.5. I mean, it's a little bit more, but it's possible. Like, we don't have to worry that you're not actually doing it, because we'll have other things. But we also know we can always up the damage. Next thing, do you want them to have a ranged attack other than casting blight? Or
I don't think so. That doesn't seem very on flavor.
Well, they do have 120-foot fly speed, so they're probably going to be able to get into things' faces.
Yeah. He might outpace the arrow that he would shoot.
So then I think we can get rid of these things for now, right?
I think so.
And I know we're probably going to want to wrap up this one again, so this is going to be a 3-parter for us to finish this guy off. But we've got probably a couple minutes to do our 2 hours. What do you want to do next, Garrett? Do you want to start ballparking hit points and armor class? Do you want to start trying to slot the spells in? What we're not going to get to today is other potential actions if we want to give them.
Yeah.
Though some of those might come from modifying spells, right?
Let's see if we can do some hit points. Hit points and armor class.
Okay.
That seems kind of fairly quick and something that I don't personally know much about. So from a selfish standpoint, I kind of want to learn more about that. So.
Okay. So, again, that chart I just told you gives you average hit points and things for certain challenge ratings. Here's the thing. Whatever the hit points it asks for there, I mean, Runis D&D, I am always interested in what other people have done. So, Garrett, I would imagine that if somebody else has done a Pazuzu, you would definitely be interested in seeing it and comparing it.
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking about that today on the ride home, actually, when I was thinking about what's happening tonight is, I know that everybody and their mom has done, like Dante's Circles of Hell, right? That's a very easy. I don't want to say easy. That's not the right word. Very common, I guess, setting. And there's a ton. It's interesting to me, just from like a creative standpoint, how somebody can take one setting and everybody can have a different perspective on it. So one person's Dante's Inferno is going to be way different from somebody else's.
And I'm always curious at how other people approach similar material. What I will say when designing material is I think it's a great thing to look at similar things other people have done and draw from that. What I will say is when you're trying to balance things, quote unquote, try and lean on official material for precedent of like, oh, is this balanced? Or the wording, look to the official material more, because while there is a lot of very good homebrew out there, some of it is not as good, and also some people, they've balanced it for the game they like to play, whereas the stuff in the official material is in theory more universally balanced, again, in theory. But I'm always curious as how other people do it, and it's how you learn, right? You can see things that you like and things that you don't like. Also, I would imagine Pazuzu, I'm curious if other people have done it with more of a Mesopotamian mythological flair, but I also know that chances are a lot of the homebrew Pazuzus out there are more drawing on things like The Exorcist, which, as we have discussed earlier in the stream, is not the direction Garrett really wants to go with this, because it departs heavily from the original mythology.
Yeah, so, I mean, without that, I'm going to hop on my soapbox here just for a minute. I think that the most underrated mythology in the world is ancient Mesopotamian mythology. I mean, the mythologies of the Assyrians and the Akkadians and the Sumerians, the Babylonians. Like, this mythology is so rich and so just awesome. Gilgamesh is my favorite story, just hands down my favorite story of all time. I love Gilgamesh. I love teaching Gilgamesh to the kids, playing the one-shot, well, I say one-shot, the quote-unquote one-shot through book 1 and 2 with them this year was super awesome. And it makes me sad that there's no real well-written, well-structured modern interpretations of them. The closest we have is The Exorcist, which is Pazuzu. Pazuzu is a guardian demon, which is ironic enough because he possesses a little girl, and he's supposed to be the guardian of children and pregnant women. So that's ironic. Plus, it puts this Judeo-Christian emphasis on a Mesopotamian demon, and that was before the days of Judaism and Christianity.
Okay, I'm going to get on a soapbox and correct you there. It is before the days of Christianity. It is not before the days of Judaism. We are currently at 5,700 years in the Jewish calendar, so it is about the same year.
They were fairly close, I think. So
the early Jewish traditions, while not a very different thing than we currently have, are of about the same age as this. But that is part of why, something we've talked about before, some of the mythology we know of ancient Mesopotamia, it is the influential thing that so many things are based on, but also the versions we know now have been backwards influenced by the things that came after. So what came this way and what came this way is sometimes hard to parse out.
That's true. I mean, if you look at Gilgamesh, the story, the last part is about Utnapishtim. No, Utnapishtim. That's a hard word to say. Who got two animals, 2 by 2, led them on a boat, and there was a flood, much like the Bible
and
or
this
the
is
Torah.
Where I will say, well, the early Judaic traditions originated around the same time. Now, are these just two versions of the same story being told like this? Did one of them do it first and the other adopt it? When did that happen? Or was that always more of a Judaic tradition, and then as history carved up and grabbed certain things and then reinterpreted Gilgamesh as we now know it today, did it grab a couple other things that happened around the same time and mesh it into it that may not have been at that time?
Creolization and cross-culturalization is a fuzzy subject, and it's so interesting, and I love it. I love it so much. But all of that to say,
as you said,
like, there's no real well-versed interpretation of it. Like, there's no Percy Jackson for Gilgamesh. There's no.
Okay, well, I might wince
sad.
at that. I thought that Percy Jackson is a well-referenced interpretation of Greek myth. Makes my Greek mythology head.
Well, it's a great introduction for kids, right? If I am a teacher in teaching 6th grade and I'm like, does anybody know anything about Greek culture? Oh, I read Percy Jackson. Oh, okay. Well, they come to the class with some sort of background knowledge. There's none of that for Gilgamesh or for any Mesopotamian creatures.
And anything that gets kids interested in things. That said, being the snob that I am, and I grew up, well, getting more traditional versions of Greek myth from my dad. Made sure I had that. I am still angry to this day that not in junior high, not in primary school, in high school, when we did a Greek mythology bit, the English teacher decided that the best way to educate us was to show us the animated Disney Hercules. I almost lost my mind because people can love that movie. It absolutely butchers Greek myth every way. So the fact that this was this is how we're going to learn Greek mythology.
Yeah, I same thing with Pocahontas, right? If you watch Pocahontas in U.S. history, which is commonplace with 5th grade, since that's their first introduction to Jamestown and things. I'm right there with you as an American historian by trade. It hurts my heart. It hurts me so right in the feels, man. But anyway,
Rennes, if you want to wait to show us that till we get this one further along, that's fine. I also, trust me, seeing what somebody else has done for my half of this, if Garrett would rather rate, that's fine. For my half, I don't care.
I think this one should be completed first to appreciate the design. To compare, is that what he's asking? Yeah, I think this needs to be 100% done before we look and see what others are out there.
If that works better for Garrett, great. Well, that's how we'll approach it. Thank you, Ruinous. So, armor class and hit points. Here's the thing. Armor class for player characters, if they're not wearing armor, is defined as 10 plus your dexterity modifier. Now, if you're a monk or barbarian, other things factor into that. Con modifier or wisdom modifier, respectively. When you're doing it for something that has natural armor, you get to kind of pick a number. Like, really, this is whatever you want it to be. Okay. I would say looking at things like Gratz and the other demon lords is a good idea.
Gratz in that 20, 17, 18, and
22,
16 for him.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess from a flavor perspective, I see this as kind of a badass Theros demon, because that's kind of how we've structured his melee attack and just kind of the way he's...
But the Theros demons would probably be good analogs for you to base the normal wind demons on.
Yeah.
Right? But
and this is the king.
Zuzu is the king of it. So he's the more badass version of that.
Yeah.
So what are the armor class on those guys?
Yeah, that's we've got 17, 18, and what's the Eater of Hope is 6. No, I'm sorry. Eater of Hope is 17.
Nightmare's Shepherd as the most powerful one is 18.
So I would say somewhere in Gratz is 20. I would say 22.
I think right in that 20 to 22 spot is probably where we're living too. Also because the way you described the way you want Pazuzu to be, they're less of a I'm a big sack of hit points.
Yeah.
And more of a you have a hard time hitting me.
Exactly. Bingo.
So
I think that's exactly right.
I think if you look at things like the higher armor class ones from the Demon Lords, Gratz is 20, Yinogu is 20, doing about 20 is fine by me. I would say maybe not the 22, arguably, because that's like the Demogorgon is 22, and it's challenge rating 26 and a little bit beefier and all of that, right? But if we wanted to split the difference and say like 21,
You can go 21.
also, arguably, if we looked at something like, let's say how a barbarian calculates it, they'd be at a 22 because it's con. Or if it's how a monk does it, it's dexterity and wisdom, therefore it would be a 23. So 21 to 22, that's really up to you. It's not going to break things either way.
And you, okay, back just for my own like frame of reference and like note taking. I should be taking notes like a good student, but I'm not. I should be though.
You have the video D. You can go back.
That's true. I can go back and watch the recording. Hello, future me. It's good to see you here. When you
Hello,
calculate, when you calculate armor class, it's natural is 10 plus your modifier, right?
Yeah, 10 plus dex for a player. Yeah.
Right.
They're not wearing
But they're
armor.
not
If
a
they're
player,
wearing
so you can finagle that number all day long.
Correct.
Okay.
That's if it's natural armor, think about like what it would be, and look at similar creatures, right? And
Yeah.
for you, you had the right thought, which is the most similar demon to you, just in the most basic way, is the ones from Theros, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So this is just the better version of them. So he's a little bit higher than that, right?
yeah.
If a creature is wearing armor, look at the way it's done with for a player, right? Look at the different types of armor. If they're wearing plate armor and have a shield, that's an 18, and a +2 from a shield, it's 20, right? If they're not wearing armor, you have to sort of use your discretion and look at similar creatures, right? Most giants are pretty easy to hit. They have a lot of hit points, though, right? Dragons tend to have higher ACs because not only are they big sacks of hit points, they also have thick armored scales as part of their natural armor, right? So dragon hide being at least as tough as plate mail kind of makes sense.
Right.
So AC is totally subjective when you're dealing with natural armor. So you have to develop that thing. This is fairly high. Rarely to show something that has an absolutely massive AC. I believe, give me a moment here. If we want to go like big, challenge rating 30, it will destroy all the things, right? The Tarrasque, the equivalent of Godzilla, has an AC of 25.
And that's like the big beefy AC. That'd be kind of like barbarian AC, right?
That's better than barbarian AC.
Well,
technically, if you really max things out, barbarian AC without any other bonuses, if you somehow maxed out your dex and your con, which at 20th level goes to 24, you could have a 22 AC as a barbarian if you max things out. That's pretty hard to do, but it's possible.
Okay.
But no, like a Tarrasque, this big guy right here, Godzilla, the World Ender, is 25. Outside of some magical shenanigans, and there are definitely player characters who can get up to ridiculous ACs beyond that with certain magic items and certain spells. In general, I would say mid to low 20s is as high as you want to go. There are exceptions, but
okay.
Hit points. And that's probably where we should close it for tonight, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
So, we've been using Gratz. we can still use Gratz, right? Gratz has 33 D10.
It seems very popular that D10 is the...
Well, because he's a large creature.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that little part. Yeah.
So we're a D8 because you decided you wanted them to be...
Right, he's medium.
Medium. Right? So as a medium creature, he's a D8. So that means if we want them to have as many hit points as Gratz, which is kind of more or less what we're shooting for, we're going to have more hit dice.
So here's what I was thinking with that, and you can tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong. Again, he's not really a combat-heavy demon. When he hits hard, but like he's not out looking for a fight unless he has to. I don't think his hit points are necessarily ridiculously high. I think he's great at dodging and he's hard to hit, but I don't think he's hard to kill if you can hit him in the right spot and hit him, period.
So why don't we use Gratz's current hit dice, the 33, as our starting point, and then we can move it up or down.
Okay.
Okay, so first things first, if we have 33 hit dice, that's number of the plus 165 for Gratz, is calculated using your con modifier. So it's going to be 33 times 5.
Say that again.
So
one more time.
The things but Gratz has an average of 346 hit points.
Right.
Which is calculated by 33 D10 plus 165.
Where does that 165 come from?
That's what I'm telling you, is the 165 is generated by that same 33 times your Constitution modifier. Because just like a player character, when you level up, right, you get a D10 if you're a fighter, right, as your hit dice, and then you add your con modifier.
Got you. So 33
times
5 is indeed...
I pulled that one out, Ruinous, because Tarask is the big world ender, but as a dragon, the Great Worms, Amphisbans, and or Bahamut, and or Tiamat are slightly closer to my heart than the big Godzilla monster. But so, just like a player character, you get to add your con modifier as well, each of your hit dice. So 33 times your con modifier. And this is where, as much as I like to do all the math in my head, for this stuff, using a calculator is fine. No one will judge you.
Well, that's good. So we've got
33 times 5.
Okay, so the 5 is the average, right? D8 for...
No. The 30, that's for the con modifier.
Okay.
Yeah, we're figuring it. And 5. If you notice, it's the same con modifier that Gratz has. So that means...
So it's going to be plus 165. That's not going to change.
Correct. Now, unless we change the number of hit dice.
So we've got 33 D8, right?
Correct. So the 33 D8 is what you now have to calculate. So that would be 4.5 would be the average roll on a D8.
So we could do 4.5 now. This is where I'm going to show my terrible at math, so bear with me here. We can do 4.5 times 33, right?
Correct.
Okay. And then that gives you 13.5 plus 165.
What 13.5? What?
4 point... Oh, wait, I calculated that wrong. I did 3, not 33. 148.5.
So 148 plus 165.
And the rule is you always round down, right? In D&D.
Generally, yes. There are a few exceptions, but all round down unless otherwise specified.
Okay. Something didn't work out quite right on my end because he has more hit points than Gratz does.
So then just do the 148 plus 165. I know
That's
what the number is.
313.
Correct.
I don't know how I got something high. I don't know how I did that, but I did.
Which I am fine with. We can now, when we finish everything else up with this, again, this is an easy thing to modify. If we go, you know what? Let's up this a bit. We could make it 34, and we would add 5 to this 165 part to make it 170, and then we would add another 4.5. So that'd be an add of a total of another 9.5, and all of a sudden it would be 323, right? So we can up it or lower it as we see fit. But again, if we start looking at the thing we did before, in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I don't know if you still have that one open for yourself.
Oh, I do. It's over here.
Okay. Where are we falling on hit points right now?
We're at 313. So we're at a CR 17.
Correct. But what else do we have? We have a lot of damage immunity. Well, no, but we also have a lot of damage immunities and damage resistances. Right. And if you actually read more in depth in that chapter, it tells you to artificially inflate their hit points for every immunity they have.
Oh, okay.
As I said, this is not a perfect calculation. That chart is a useful starting place, but what I'm saying is if we're shooting for low to mid 20s, and we already know that before we factor in a enormous number of resistances and immunities, right? Mm-hmm. We are already at high teens, and chances are we are at least going to be hitting 21 or something like that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. I see. I'm trying to figure out now. The immunities part that's in here, where is that an average CR rating? Where is that part at?
Okay. Let me grab that book back out. Oh, excuse the clanging, people. Again, let me just get to that section of the DMG. If you go to further ability scores, armor class, hit points. So that would be on page 276.
Wow. And there we go. Okay.
And then, oh, sorry, 277, because it actually has the damage vulnerabilities and resistances, effective hit points. So if a monster has a resistance or immunity to several damage types, especially bludgeoning, piercing damage, and not all characters in the party, so it's suggesting that it would increase the hit points by at least 50% effectively. So add another 150 hit points onto that.
How does that compare to our Demon Lord friend over here? What is he? Yeah,
oh, we have a similar number of resistances to Gratz. But the point is, if you add that, all of a sudden the 150, oh, we're right in that 22 to 23 challenge rating. Right? And we have a higher AC than that. Right?
Yeah.
So it all balances out.
I gotcha. Okay.
So where that leaves us is for next time we do this, we've got all these spells. We're going to slot them in there into this section of what spells are at will, how many times a day you can cast them. If there are some of these spells that we go, you know what? Maybe we don't need to give them the Investiture of Wind spell. maybe we just give them like a cool bonus action they can do once a day that is kind of based on that spell. Right?
Yeah.
And then we come up with some legendary actions, and if there's anything like that. But, you know, first things first, attacks. They can hit. They do. It does a fair bit of damage.
Yeah.
So, Garrett, again, I ask of you, because we're wrapping this up. I know it maybe we wanted to accomplish a little bit more, but do you feel like you have learned things? And are you happy with the direction Pazuzu is going? Is it coming closer to your vision?
Oh, yeah. I have... I love working with you because I always leave learning something, which is awesome. Yeah, and I hope, you know, not only did I learn something, but I hope, as I say on the investigation check, I hope you learned something as well. Those people out there listening and watching here. And again, you are free to answer any question, or I'm sorry, well, you can answer if you want, but you can ask any questions regarding monster building, regarding homebrewing, regarding our opinions on life, liberty, the pursuit of property, whatever is tickling your brain, you can ask away. That's what we're here for. So
always happy to. And yeah, Ruinous has hit the nail on the head, as what I just said of it. Is Garrett happy with where this is going, and are they learning, and is this fulfilling their vision? That is, in fact, the most important part, because that's what we're trying to do here, is make something fun that Garrett is learning how to do more of this on his own, and that, more importantly, Garrett is having fun with and fits the thing you want to make. Exactly. Because as I said when I was saying, like, some of the skill proficiencies, I've read up on Pazuzu. I have the ideas that popped into my head of how I would do it. Some of those I am giving you and you are using, and they fit. There are other things where you might have interpreted it slightly differently, and that's fine. I'm here to help you make your version of Pazuzu.
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, you know, there's 120 million versions of Dante's Inferno. But each one's going to be different, and no two are going to be alike. How there can be 120 million different interpretations of the same story is bonkers in the best kind of way, because there's going to be something out there for everybody. And you can also are free to make your own, too. So this is an exercise in creativity, kind of a very interesting way to write creatively, and craft something that's truly unique and, you know, truly your own, and a part of who you are, and kind of what you value in these stories, because I think that's why we're all here at the end of the day, is that we all love us some good stories. So
yeah, and D&D and TTRPGs and the rules that drive them are just a vehicle by which we tell stories. Designing stuff, I've become somewhat of a rules expert, but I am a theater person. I am a performer by nature. I like doing funny voices and telling stories with friends. That the rules are just the vehicle. You're designing stuff, yes, you want to be judicious that you understand what you're doing. But once you're at the table, rules are meant to be bent, broken, thrown out if it serves the story.
Exactly. And with that being said, Ruinous, I'm so glad that you're here with us. Thanks for hanging out for this long. It was a pleasure to have you. And thanks for the gifting of the sub, man. That was awesome. I really appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
So as we wrap up, Dragon, would you like to tell us one more time about who you are, what you do, and how you do it?
Happily. For those who don't know, my name is Daniel Lieberman. I am known by many simply as Dragon. I am one half of DragonRocRPG Design, where alongside my writing and design partner, Renee Beauregard, we create supplemental material to be used in games of D&D 5e. This includes new subclasses, races, monsters, magic items, monsters as you... sorry, I already said monsters, yeah. Monsters as you saw tonight. Pretty much anything else you can think of. You can follow us at DragonRocRPG Design on Instagram and at DragonRocRPG on Twitter and Facebook. That is rock, spelled R-O-C, like the giant mythical bird, not the shard of stone. There is no K. Follow us to keep up with everything Renee and I do in the world of TTRPGs. As to some supplements we've released, you can check out several of our supplements on DM's Guild that are all free, pay what you want documents, so you can download them for free. If you like them, throw us a few bucks if you want. But more than anything, we appreciate when people give us a rating and review. We want to know what you thought of it, what you liked, so we can keep making things that people like. The supplements available there include our most recent release, our Ranger Subclasses Volume 1, that had 3 new Ranger archetypes, our Warlock subclasses, which had 2 new Warlock subclasses, 4 new Eldritch Invocations, and a new Pact Boon. Our Barbarian subclasses that had 3 new Barbarian subclasses. You're getting a theme here. And our first release was our Icons of Horror, which was 5 different subclasses based on villains from horror cinema. That was Renee's brainchild, and I just, worked with him to make it happen. As I said, they're all free, pay what you want. Check them out. I hope you enjoy them. In addition to our own supplements, we love collaborating with other members of the TTRPG community, like I have the pleasure to do with Garrett here tonight, working as collaborators and consultants, helping people realize their visions and lending our experience and expertise to hopefully get them to do so in the best ways that work for them. We also are available to work on things via commission. So if you have an idea for something that you'd like to see and either feel you don't have the skill or the time or really the desire to make it yourself, we are happy to make it for you. So please reach out. You can find both Renee and I on, I'll no doubt be back here on Garrett's stream helping continue with Pazuzu, and as well as maybe teaching Garrett how to do a few other things in the homebrew world. Both
I've got so many ideas. It's ridiculous how many ideas I want help with.
Renee and I both also pop up on a mutual friend of this stream who'll be here next Tuesday in the Story Ellis Adventures, Logan Hanley, at the Red Hair Inn Twitch channel, where currently I believe Renee is on there playing in Logan's campaign every other Tuesday, so alternating with Garrett's Story Ellis going forward. I appear on that stream every couple of Thursdays generally to help Logan build some things for his world. We've been working on subclasses, backgrounds, a few races, some feats, all kinds of things. And we also both, Renee and I, do things with the Initiative Order, which is a great D&D community that has community games as well as stream games. Renee and I, he pops up more often as a player than I do. I may be doing some of that in the not too distant future, we'll see. But we also collaborate and help them out on the back end. Renee has his Mythical Melee, where we pitch players against each other in a combat battle, and I just help make the things that they throw at each other. That's most of what you need to know. Follow the socials. You can find out more there. You can also follow me at DMC Lieberman on both Instagram and Twitter. I don't post very often, but I'm there, and I like meeting people. You can find out a little bit about my background in music and theater, and most notably dance, some yoga teaching. I am a jack of all trades, master of none, multi-class to hell. It's a problem, but it's what I am. That's more than enough of the Dragon Rock and Daniel/Dragon shtick. So, Garrett, always a pleasure working with you. And
likewise.
Thank you, everyone who joined us in stream. Ruinous, thank you for the gift sub. I greatly appreciate it. And to be able to support Garrett and appreciate it, I really do.
And likewise, thanks for coming on. You don't have to do this, but you choose to do it anyway, and I greatly appreciate that as I try to find where the raid button is on this crazy contraption. There it is.
Are we going to go and raid the Red Hair Inn?
Yeah, we are. We're going to start raid. And we're going to get there in 7 seconds. So may the road rise to meet you all, and may the winds be at your backs. And until tomorrow, when Chris is on and we're world building Story Ellis, the last time before the campaign officially kicks off, may a friend hold you close, and I'll talk to you all again real soon. Take care.
Take care, everyone.